All right, so for those of you who have been skateboarding for a while, the process of getting up to speed properly and efficiently is going to become pretty much second nature to you, since in order to do any moving tricks, the first thing you have to do is push to get up to those speeds. But for those of you who are a little bit newer to skateboarding, if your push looks a little bit awkward, or if you're not able to get up to the speeds that you're wanting to get up to, here's a few tips that you can use to improve your pushing technique and also add a little bit of style to it as well. All right, so tip number one is going to be to push with your back foot, not with your front foot. Pushing with your back foot is going to be more functional and it's going to look better than the alternative of trying to push with your front foot. Now, if you've already learned how to push and you learned how to push off with your front foot, what I'd say to do is just go ahead and disallow yourself from pushing like that from now on. Only push with your back foot, and within a really reasonable time frame, maybe a couple of days, you're going to be just as good at pushing as you were the other way. And then from there on, you're going to excel much faster at being able to push more efficiently and go faster and have way more stability. All right, so once you have the basic technique of pushing with your back foot down, the next thing you're going to want to practice is just balancing on the board with one foot. Now, when you very first started learning how to skateboard, you may have been taught to put your front foot on the board like this, with it kind of perpendicular to the board, so you're already in your riding position, push off, put your back foot on, and leave your front foot like this the whole time. But when you get more advanced and you want to be able to push with more power, what you're going to want to do is be pushing in a situation where your front foot is pointing forward along with you, so that way you're able to get the most range of motion out of your push. Now, when you switch from pushing to riding, you can always just pivot your front foot into the riding position, but while you're pushing, you want to be set up to push in the most optimal way that you can. So what I'm going to have you do is, until you're able to stand on the board with just your front foot for as long as you want to, I want you to take a few minutes out of every day and just put your board like on a piece of carpet or maybe on some grass and just stand on the board with your front foot for as long as you can. You might fall off or whatever after a little bit and do it again. And then whenever you get to about a minute, go ahead and your ankle muscles are going to need a little bit of a break. Do it with your other foot and try to get to a minute on there. So we're going to do a minute on this foot. Stand like that on your board and then switch to the other foot. Maybe do this for a minute. And I want you to be working on this for like at least 5 minutes a day until you're able to just stand on the board comfortably and it doesn't feel like a big struggle to stay on the board for more than a second or so at a time. And the reason I want you to practice with both feet is because when you're traveling long distances on a skateboard, this front leg that you're standing on is going to get tired pretty quick. So what you want to be able to do is, after you're pushing on this leg for a while, and once it gets tired, you can switch and push in your switch stance and push like this for a while, ride a little bit, and then switch back on and off. So go ahead and practice this with both feet for now, trying to get to where you can stand on each foot on the skateboard for at least a minute without falling off or getting too wobbly. Now, once you're able to do that, what I want you to do is start doing the same thing, but do it on concrete. And whenever you do that, obviously the board is going to roll forward and backward a whole lot easier. So if you're a beginner to skateboarding, make sure you take the proper precautions not to get injured and like fall off and break your arm or something like that. So make sure you have practice falling, and also that you're wearing pads. So that means, number one, wear a helmet, and then I would say definitely put on some wrist guards and some elbow pads and stuff like that if you're not comfortable taking really comfortable taking a fall. And then if you can, just go ahead and have someone stand next to you while you're doing it, and then if you start to fall, they can kind of catch you and hold you up from going all the way down. Now, once you really start to get the hang of balancing on your board with just your front foot, now you're going to be able to choose when you want to kick off at the ground with your back foot and when you want to just coast for a second while you're pushing, which is a really important part of being able to do it functionally. Now, the third thing we're going to want to look at is how close you have your back foot to the board whenever you're kicking off of the ground. So a beginner, they might have their foot way off to the side and they're pushing kind of like that because they're a little bit hesitant to put all their weight on top of the board, and so they need to have their center of gravity more over the ground. But like we just talked about, we want you to practice having all of your weight on top of the board, so that way you're not scared to do this and you can actually push in an optimal way, which is you're going to have your back foot kind of underneath your hips the same way you'd have it if you were kind of sprinting. So if you're sprinting, you'd kind of push off, every step would be like this, and that's going to give you the most power. That's why you run like that. That's why you run with your feet under your hips, is because that's the way you have the most power to run. So whenever you're riding a skateboard, you want to do pretty much the same thing. You want the path that your pushing foot takes to stay right under your hip, and you want to keep it kind of close to the board, so that way you're able to keep it in contact with the ground for as long as possible and get as much power out of each push as you possibly can. So what that's going to mean is that rather than just kind of tapping it on the ground every once in a while to get a little more speed, you're going to want to really rotate your body in preparation to get a good spin, and then what you're gonna do is you're gonna push off and rotate the other way, and then also bend this front knee. Now it's gonna kind of happen just naturally whenever you try to go as fast as you can and you're trying to push back as hard as you can, but this front knee is gonna bend and it's gonna allow you to get an extended range of motion from your back foot. And then also you're gonna throw your upper body forward as well, so that way you can get as much out of each push as possible. All right, so now I wanna go over the technique of how you're gonna go from pushing with your front foot position like this to riding with your feet positioned more like this. You want this to be pretty natural, and you want to be able to switch between the two with a very little amount of effort. So you want to practice that a little bit. What you're going to want to do is start in this position with both of your feet facing forward, and then whenever you push, go ahead and push off. I'm going to stay here so you can see what I'm doing. So you push off, and then what you're going to want to do is you put your back foot on the board over top of the back wheels. Don't put it on the tail yet. This will allow you to pick up your front foot without the board kind of going like that. So we're gonna take our back foot, we're gonna put it on the board, not on the tail, a little bit in front of that, and then it's gonna allow you to kind of rotate your front foot into position. And then once this foot's into position, then you can put your back foot on the tail, and then you're in riding position. Now, whenever you start slowing down and you wanna push again, you can just, from here, you can just rotate your front foot into facing forward, take your back foot off, and push some more. All right, so now the next thing I want to go over is how you can go from just standing with your board to moving really fast using a running start. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take your hand that's in front when you're riding, go ahead and grab the board with your thumb on the grip tape. So then we're going to take 3 steps starting with our back foot. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3. And then when we get to the 3rd step, we're going to be in this position with our back foot forward and the tail kind of scraping along the ground a little bit. Now once you're here, all you have to do is kind of walk forward while you're letting go of the board with your front hand, and it'll fall right into place, and you can step on it with your front foot facing forward like we're going to do some more pushing. Now, whenever you do that, that allows you to keep pushing if you need a couple more kicks before you're able to start getting to your riding position, but it also allows you to step on the board and go directly into riding. All right, so the last tip I have for you guys is if you want to learn how to do this stuff really fast, turn your skateboard into a means of transportation. If normally you would take your bike or you would go for a walk somewhere, grab your skateboard and just practice pushing and doing running starts and maybe riding up and down curbs and stuff like that. And just by spending more time on your board, you're gonna get a whole lot more comfortable riding around and pushing, and you're not gonna have to actively practice it. It's just gonna come naturally. So I hope those tips helped you guys out. Let me know if you have any questions in the comment section below, and remember, never stop improving.